For a few weeks, we have been talking about the four arisings of mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of consciousness. And now we should talk about, last but not least, mindfulness of mental objects. Mental objects. What are these mental objects? Now we already have mindfulness, the four arousing, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of consciousness. And why Satipatthana Sutra still include mental objects? Why does the sutra include these four things? Now let me tell you why. This is what I think. Body, feelings, and consciousness, it deals more with the individual. This is my body, impurities of the body, my feelings, pleasant feeling, non-pleasant feeling, neither pleasant nor non-feeling. And that's the unit, the individual unit. This is more or less the inner part. But mental objects embraces all, because when you do meditation, there must be a limit as to your objects of meditation. So we talk about the body as the object, the feelings as the object, consciousness as the object, and then the sutra indirectly it says, okay, these are the smaller aspects. We can't cover everything for you. Let's do a generalized. Let's do a mindfulness on mental objects. Everything is mental object. What is not mental object? Every molecule, every proton, electron, everything. So it deals with the individual, and then it extends to, for the sake of finishing the method, let's say mindfulness on all things, all mental objects. So let us simply say the mind is the subject. The mind is the experiencing subject. It experiences. And everything that the mind can perceive is the mental object. The object being experienced. Okay, so that embraces everything. So it's unlimited amount of mental objects. But you can't talk about the unlimited amount, unlimited quantity. So which one you touch on? There must be something you touch on to teach someone. What do you pick? You just pick something for explaining your philosophy, explaining your method. You must do something. So for the purpose of discussion, we identify four categories of mental objects. So what are these four categories? The five hindrances, the five skandhas, the six sense bases, and the seven factors of enlightenment. So we'd already talked about the five hindrances as the mental objects. What are these five hindrances? These five hindrances are sensuality, anger, sloth, and torpor, agitation and worry, and doubt. So these are the five hindrances. These are the objects that hinder you from a good meditation. But you have to be mindful of them. You must know how to deal with them. So these are the negative stuff. So the sutra says, okay, when we talk about these mental objects, so many, we must narrow our discussion to something. So let's talk about the hindrances that would hinder you, that would block you up in the meditation. So introduce the mindfulness on those five, which already talked about, and we're not going to talk about today. We already have talked about them last time. So let's talk about the next one now. The five skandhas. So mindfulness on the five skandhas. What are these five skandhas? You learn the Hridaya Sutra, the Heart Sutra. You know the five skandhas, the five aggregates, the five skandhas. In the Chinese language, is Se, So, Xiang, Xin, Shi. The five skandhas or the five aggregates. We call it material or form, perception or feeling, conceptualization, volition, and consciousness. These are the five skandhas. And why bring the five skandhas? 五蕴，这个就是五蕴。Why mindfulness on the five skandhas? Because what affects you the most? Your body and mind. Your own body and mind. That's because there's unlimited mental objects. The sutra can't cover everything. So the sutra, with wisdom, brought out all those negative stuff that you should watch out for, the 5 hindrances, and then it brought out, how about yourself, your body and mind? So let's bring out the 5 skandhas and how do we be mindful on them? The 5 skandhas. Okay? Form pertains to, for example, material, your body. Perception, conceptualization, volition, and consciousness relates to the mind, the spiritual side of it, the metaphysical side of it. The other material is the physical side of it. Material is physical, material side of it, and the metaphysical side of it. So it's body and mind. So perception, conceptualization, volition, and consciousness, you can see, you can feel, you can touch, but material you can. So let's talk about the mindfulness on the 5 skandhas briefly. We're going to finish it today, so that we touch on something new next week, not the 4 arousings of mindfulness. But mind you, the 4 arousings of mindfulness, that subject is extremely important. That's the subject of Satipatthana Sutra. Take a look at the internet if you want to pursue further on Satipatthana. There's 2 sutras that you must read and you must learn if you're a meditator. Anapanasati Sutra and Satipatthana. Okay, in the Chinese language, 如果是你静坐的人呢，有2部经你不可以不学习的，一个就是安般守意经 Anapanasati， 另外一个呢就是呢四念处经 Satipatthana Sutra。我没有听过静坐的人不看这部经的，没看安般守意，不知道四念处，不知道四念处的人怎么可以静坐 ？So you must learn these 2 sutras. I already have touched on a lot for you. You can pursue further later. So how do we meditate? How do we become mindful on, first of all, material form? Let's talk about the 5 skandhas now. How do we be mindful on the material form? Now let's give an example. You're meditating and a thought comes up. What kind of thought? The thought of material. Let's give an example. A new car. You always wanted to buy a new car. You don't have enough money. And you wanted your wife to chip in from her private account. And she's been fretting over it. She doesn't want to, and there's been an argument and all that, and everybody feels unhappy about it. And in your meditation, that thought comes up. Oh, goodness, my wife, it's not fair. She should put in all that. All these things, all the thought comes up. If you are a practicer of meditation, you immediately know, I got to be mindful. Here comes a thought of material, the car. And I have been longing for it. And it comes up in my thought. No. It arises now. I must let it go. It's sustaining. I must let it go. I must let it go. So the thought is slowly disappearing. You're mindful of the thought of materiality. It's just like you're mindful of your thought of anger. I feel angry. You're mindful of it. Oh, this is the thought of anger. It comes up. I'm not attached to it. I shouldn't be attached to it. It gets me now. But people don't know. They get carried away by the anger. It's just that for any practicer of meditation, or for anybody who practice Buddhism, and they become aware of what is surrounding them, and everybody has ups and downs in life. And for example, I've been suffering for the past year. I believe in the Buddha and I practice it. Oh, everything's improved. But last month it was terrible. Something happened and I feel unhappy about it. You get carried away. How come? How come I've been practicing meditation and I've been following the Buddha's teaching? How come that thing happened to me? It's not fair. I don't like it. I don't feel happy. All these things work in you. It does not matter whether you believe in the Buddhist teaching or not. That's the karma. No matter what happened, karma works it out. You have to understand, you have to deal with it. You must know that it is a karma. You must know that you don't get carried away by it. You must know that you have to let go of it. That's how you learn. And some people simply cannot let go of it. They always feel unhappy about it. It's only the more intelligent practice of meditation that said, no, I don't want to get involved with it now. You investigate, you analyze, you know, with wisdom, you get rid of it. So, that's the thought of materiality, that you be mindful of that. The same holds true for perception. And you're meditating, and suddenly a pleasant thought comes up, or an unpleasant thought comes up, or neither pleasant or unpleasant thought comes up. You know it's a kind of feeling, it's a sensation. I don't want to be carried away by it. So you always are mindful of every thought, not just in meditation. Sitting, reclining, walking, doing. Mindfulness is not just in meditation, not just in sitting. So you become extremely aware of the 5 skandhas. Conceptualization. What do you mean by conceptualization? A thought comes up, and in that thought, conceptualization, it includes discrimination, investigation, analysis. Conceptualization in the 5 skandhas means after something is perceived, then you start to conceptualize it. This is good, this is bad, discrimination, investigation, analysis. And thought relating that conceptualization comes up too. You've got to be mindful of it. And then also, after conceptualizations, volition. Volition is carrying out into action, into speech. And you still have that thought coming up in you. You want to do, I want to yell at the other guy who was driving too slowly ahead of me. Get out of the road. When you want to yell and shout it out, it's volition already. The anger expressed into words. Words expressed into action. You were not able to control yourself. You haven't been mindful. But at that stage, when it comes to volition, it's a little late already. But then you still are mindful of it and say, no, I don't want to get that. I want to let go of that volitional thought. And then there's also the consciousness, the thought of consciousness. The thought of consciousness is more in depth. It's inscrutable. It's very deep. Something that you may not realize that relates to your alaya consciousness, which is the 8th consciousness, and also the 7th manos consciousness, which is the 7th consciousness, the ego consciousness. So to make the whole explanation brief, so that we can cover it for this period, we only have about 20 minutes left. So it is mindfulness on the 5 aggregates deals with your body and your mind. So the Satipatthana Sutra wants you, or the Buddha wants you to be mindful of material, the thought of material, thought of perception, your conceptualization, volition, and consciousness. So this is the mindfulness on the 5 skandhas. Now, what's the next? The 6th sense basis. So the sutra goes from the hindrances, 5 hindrances, to yourself, how to be mindful of yourself, the 5 skandhas. And then it's not enough, because yourself, your body and mind is not extending enough to extend far out into objects that is outside of you, the 6 sense bases. What are the 6 sense bases do you still remember the 6 sense bases? The eyes interacting with objects, ears interacting with sound, nose interacting with smell, tongue interacting with taste, touch interacting with tactiles, touch, anything that's touching, the skin, the body. And then mind interacting with almost anything. So these are the 6 sense bases. In Theravada school, when they study consciousness, they don't have 7 consciousness and 8 consciousnesses. The 8 consciousness. They only study up to the Abhidharma, only study. So if you talk to Theravada in Sri Lanka or Burma, if you talk to them about consciousness, they stop at the 6th consciousness. They don't talk about the 7th, the Mano consciousness and Alaya consciousness. The Buddha in the Abhidharma didn't include the 7th and the 8th. The 7th and the 8th are only expounded in the Mahayana Buddhism. And why didn't they talk about the 7th and 8th consciousness? Because the Buddha didn't explain it in the Abhidharma of the Theravada, because the Alaya consciousness is quite resembling I, the self. And the Arahat is already selfless. The Arahat was already able to get rid of the self. If the Alaya consciousness is introduced, then the Alaya consciousness may be mistaken for the self, and that may confuse the Arahat's thinking. So the Buddha has not introduced the 7th and 8th consciousness. But the Mahayana goes deeper. It goes into the 7th and the 8th. So there's only 6 sense bases. The Satipatthana Sutra relates to the Theravada school, so it doesn't talk about the 7th and 8th consciousness. So the 6th consciousness, the Manos consciousness, is the mind which interact with all objects. So you see the 6 sense bases? Whenever you read the sutra, you should know the background and why it's only 6 sense bases and not about the 7 consciousness and the 8. They didn't have that. All right. So how do you become mindful of your 6 sense bases? Your eyes can see. Your eyes interact with form. Your ears interact with sound. So, for example, when a thought comes up, when John, for example, John is slandering you, libeling you, talk bad about you, his bad mouth behind your back, and you heard about it. Somebody told you, "Oh, John talked something bad about you. He said you're a nasty guy. You're no good. You've been selfish, and nobody likes you, and all that." And you feel extremely unhappy about it, especially working in the workplace. Somebody talk behind your back, and they think they hurt you and all that. That's a sound. That's a sound. That's from the sound. The sound gets into your ears. So your ears interact with that sound, which you think is unpleasant because it hurts you. And you take it to your mind. You take it to your heart. You attach to it. And when you're meditating, you don't feel happy. You feel depressed. And you must be mindful of it. That is your ear organ interacting with sound, and that sound has no real nature. That sound is causality. It's all these different causes put together. That sound has no real nature of its own. It is formless. It does not hurt by itself. But when you get into someone who has the karmic force, someone who attached to it, it hurts him. That sound is a weapon of Mara to pinch into your heart. But if you're mindful of it, you know it has no real nature of its own. It is empty. It is void. You just attach to it, and it becomes a needle that pricks your heart. So that applies to all. So that sound, you think is good or no good, but you must be mindful of it. Don't let it bother you. Eyes too. Whatever things you see, whatever things you hear, you taste. Or tongue also talking. You're talking also. It also corresponds to taste. So the six sense bases, so you must be mindful of your six sense bases in everything you do. So I don't have to go into detail. Nose, smell, the six sense bases. All these six sense bases, as I said, they are your salesmen at your door, doing good and bad things for you. If your whole body is a company, this eyes, ear, nose, what else? Body and the mind, they are tongue. They are salesmen doing all kinds of transactions for you, good and bad. You're going to watch them. You be mindful of them. Don't let them carry you away. So these are the three hindrances. Mindfulness on hindrances. Now, that is still under the category of mental objects. Mindfulness on hindrances that you should know. All these things that hinder you. Watch out for them. What are these things? Anger, sloth, and torpor, doubt, agitation, and worry. Watch out for them in your meditation. And then, your body and mind, these five skantras, material, feelings, conceptualization, volition, and consciousness. And then, the six sense bases. That includes a lot of things. What is the final one? The final is mindfulness on the seven factors of enlightenment. Now, after this passive aspect, because these are the defensive part. You want to defend yourself from hindrances, defend yourself from attachment to all these six sense bases, interaction, and the five skantras. Last but not the least, the sutra introduced the seven factors of enlightenment to cheer you up. These are positive things now. The seven factors of enlightenment are the positive things that you should be using to enhance your confidence, to make your meditation more effective. So one of these, the seven factors of the seven factors are mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. So these are positive things, assertive things. All the others, they are negative. You got to defend yourself from them. You got to be controlling them. You got to be able to watch them. But these things encourages you. What is mindfulness? How to be mindful of these? What does mindfulness mean in here? It means that when you are developing the four arousing of mindfulness, you must continue to be mindful and remind yourself to cultivate further. Don't stop. So in the process of doing all this, remind yourself, mindful of all these things, and remind yourself you don't stop in there. Remind that you should develop it further, the four arousing of mindfulness. This is mindfulness. It's a general grand mindfulness. Investigation. Investigation means that on whatever occasions of mindfulness, you must investigate and examine that state with wisdom and embark on a full inquiry of it, into it. In other words, find out more information about whether you do it right. Are you on the right course? You still need the investigation. You still need the analysis. You still need that. One chooses the most appropriate way according to one's arising conditions. What is the most appropriate way for you? We always say that there is no such thing as a good teacher or a bad teacher, a good place or a bad place. The place that is good for you is the place that is the most appropriate to you yourself. If you go to a temple, some people say, I don't want to go to that temple because it's not a good temple, I can't practice. But some people practice pretty well in there. It is suitable for them. Don't blame the temple. It's you yourself. It's not, the causality does not happen that you are suitable for that temple. Or the teacher either. For some professors, you think that professors is not good at university, but then a lot of Other students say, oh, that's a good professor, I learned from him. That's his style. I like his style. There's no such thing as a good or bad. Of course, there are personalities of professors, of course. But anyway, so what does energy mean? So we explain mindfulness, investigation. What does energy mean? Energy means during your investigation with wisdom, you must diligently and conscientiously develop and apply your energy to it. It's just like when you are doing Om Mani Padme Hum. And some people, because of the sloth and torpor, they just Om Mani Padme Hum. They want other people to chant. They just want to listen. It's better for me to listen. I feel better. I don't have any air in me. If I air it out, I lose my air. I lose my chi. They want to save the chi. But let me tell you, the Tibetan Buddhism, where they have thousands of monks in here, the way they chant is like the hymn of billions of bees. Om mani mum 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 mani mum mum. The energy is vibrating everywhere. It's the energy affect each other. So that you don't just you say it out. And I find that if I chant it out, you don't have to yell it out, but you chant it out louder, there's energy vibration. Your chi is more in harmony. Your surplus chi gets out. And because of the vibration, it's a reminder. It's also a frequency attachment. I always compare it to the movie, the E.T. movie. That little finger, with that little finger, it stands out to the sky, and then this big cosmic finger cling to it, ding, and that's the connection. How do you get that connection? That's the most important. Why do we have to chant? It's okay if we just practice ourselves. After all, Buddhism is self-practice. It's you that is most important. You create your own karma. Why do we still have to chant? You know why? Because there were beings like you and me who suffered before, and they attained enlightenment after so many life cycles, and their compassion level have reached to the utmost that they want to help you out. They don't want to leave this world. They have big, great vows before they leave this world. They always want to come back. Siddhagapa Bodhisattva, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, they always want to come back to help you out. They know that you have karma. It's just like the mother always loves the daughters and the son. When the daughters and the sons are in hardship, they're in difficulty, the mothers always want to render the helping hand. The Bodhisattva are even more serious in the compassion. Mother and son relationship is conditional. Somebody else's son and daughter, you may not care less. You don't really care. You don't really care. If somebody else's sons and daughters, you may not care that much. But if it's your sons and your daughters, you want to struggle your life for them. You want to give everything for them. If they suffer, it is as if you are suffering. You suffer with them. It's the same feeling. The Bodhisattvas treat you, me, as their sons and daughters. Because their compassion level, it's as if you, the mother, towards your son and your daughters. And that compassion is even billions of times more because it's unconditional. But how do you get linked up with them? You chant the names. You chant the mantra. That's how E.T. linked up with the cosmic, getting back to where he belongs. It's very symbolical. When someone watched that movie, when you watch that movie, what do you get from it? That's what I got. Somehow, E.T.'s got to be linked to something to get back to where he belongs. How do you do it? It's that finger. I thought that movie is really very spiritual. But when someone look at it, oh, what that E.T. finger? Oh, it's funny. That finger has a broken finger. that killed little E.T. We never thought about the spiritual side of it. So, one object is the same object perceived by different people. Different people will come up with different feeling. So there's no such thing as a true, real object with its true, real nature. Because the perception changes according to the individual's karma. You see what I mean? There's no real object. Because if there's a real object, that object should be the same as perceived by everybody. I don't know if you know what I mean. So there's no real object. It's just your consciousness that is real. Object is not real. And somebody argue, are you going to say this paper is not real? This is in my hand. This is a real piece of paper. Its form is real. But what is this paper made up of? A whole bunch of wood barb and pulp, color, labor, all these things put together to make it a paper. That's real, the form is real, but it has no nature of its own. Perceived by different people, it has a different perception. It's just like water. According to Sutra, here's an object called water, a pond of water. When the ghosts look at a pond of water, it's not water. It's blood. It's fire. When he wants to drink, he doesn't have water to drink because it immediately becomes fire and water and pus, that the ghost can't drink it. That's their karma. They committed causes of greediness, injury, fraudulence, shamelessness, killing, lying, slandering, sexual misconduct, you name it. They did all kinds of misdeeds, all kinds of karmic force that push themselves into the realm of the ghosts. And when they see a pond of water, when they first see it, it may be water, but when they approach it for drinking, it turns into pus, it just turns into blood and fire. Now, so the ghosts see that object, water, is fire and blood. He can't drink it. When the fish see the water, what is it? It's their habitat. It's like what we see air. They like it. The fish like the object of water. It's not blood anymore. It's a prerequisite of life. It's the basic of life. So to the animal's realm, the fish, the object turns to be an object of habitat, of basic requirement. It's good. When the human sees water, it's water that they can drink. When the guardian angels, when people in Rupadhatu, the fairy people who are higher level up, when they see water, it's crystal. When they see a pond of water, it's glamorized crystal, beautiful crystal. They can walk on, they can enjoy it. So the same object, water, because of the different karmic force, is different perception. If that object, water, is real, authentic, real, it should be the same to all parties involved, to all realms involved. But it isn't. It's not real. What is real though? Your consciousness is real. Only your consciousness. Don't you have a consciousness? So there's no object, just your consciousness. Why are you attached to the object? Your karmic force make you perceive certain things in the way controlled by your own karma force, your karma. Okay, so that's energy means during your investigation with wisdom, we must diligently and consciousness develop and apply energy to it. What is the joy? The joy, the fourth factor, would arise, followed by the fifth factor, which is tranquility. Then your mind would feel still and reposed and obtain equanimity. So this brings as to a conclusion of my brief explanation on the 5 arousing of mindfulness as expounded in the Satipatthana Sutra. So you still remember the 5 arousings? Now I gave you only a brief introduction. So mindfulness of the body, of feelings, consciousness, mindfulness of mental objects. It works from the individual to the outside. The body, the mind, and then it works from the interaction to the outside, and it works for all mental objects. This is how the Satipatthana Sutra explains mindfulness to you. And mindfulness, the Chinese Zen monks classified them into 2 parts, the samatha and the vipassana. Samatha is the initial step to control the mental afflictions. And vipassana is to obtain wisdom. So it's like the wings of 2 birds, your samatha and vipassana. Samatha is concentration, and it is the most important. And vipassana brings you to wisdom. Samatha is to suppress your mental afflictions so that you can eliminate your ego. No more I, no more self, no more to liberate you from your ego prison. That's samatha. Vipassana is what? Vipassana is more than that. Vipassana is, other than not having the ego, it points you to the enlightenment, nirvana, wisdom. So it's more. First of all, you got to have the ego eliminated first, so that you get out of reincarnation. No more samsara. Vipassana helps you to get what? You already get out of reincarnation. It also helps you to get to the Buddhahood, the enlightenment, the ultimate supreme wisdom. It gets you to the wisdom, that nirvana. So samatha and vipassana, they are both important. They are the wings of a bird. You can't fly without them.